everyone. Welcome to Lunch Therapy Interview Friday. I am Joe Fury, and I am here to announce that Joel Marshall's Lunch Therapy has now attained the status of YouTube partner. Yes, so if you see the chat is a little different or there's something different, we don't know what's happening, but it's very exciting around here. Everyone is jumping up and down. Boney is beside himself. He has jumped completely out of his skin. Well, he never had any skin, but we are very, very happy. So congratulations, all you hummingbirds, on the new status of lunch therapy. Today we have a very exciting show. Joel Marshall, Brent David Fraser, they're gonna talk it out. Apparently they went to high school briefly together and then they went off and became actors. And so now they're going to talk about their lives. They've come back together and they are having a sort of a reunion right here on the show. So come join us for Lunch Therapy Interview Friday. All right, thanks Joe for that warm introduction. We are here for Interview Friday. I'm super excited because we've got Brent David Fraser here, just prolific actor, somebody that we have almost crossed paths many times. So that's pretty wild, yeah. I got him in the waiting room. You can hear him in there. He's got his dog today too. So let's breathe and let's get on with the show. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Yes, Loretta, we have a new status. Let it go. We're a YouTube partner. I don't know if the chat room looks different, but apparently there's some extra bells and whistles. I don't know what it means. Funky Friday. Thank you, Guinelle. Guinelle sent this hummingbird, which is living on Bainbridge Island, so is our guest, Brent David Fraser. So excited to get to this. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. That's good. I feel better already. Brent David Fraser, I can't even get into his whole prolific career. I mean, we're going to do that now. I'm just going to say that he was in a very seminal movie called The Chocolate War, that if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. I think it's a classic. I don't know, how well it did at the box office or whatever. It was sort of an indie film that came about before indie films. So check that out. It's available on Paramount Plus. We're going to play a clip maybe. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. But he's had many, many other things like Fame LA he was on. He was on a show where he played like a grunge cop in Portland. He was in Wild at Heart, just lots of other stuff. Hopefully, you're as excited as I am because, yes, Jay is excited. Good to see you, Jay Patterson, hilarious comedian. I think she had a show last night. I don't know, last night, night before. Anyway, let's get on with this, hummingbirds. This is Interview Friday with Brent David Fraser. Okay, there he is. Yeah. Oh, there he isn't.
Hi.
I just caught you off guard.
Just hanging out down there, and then I thought I'd just run up here, and there you were.
That's super rad. It's great to see you.
You too.
Oh my
you
God.
Too. I really appreciate whatever randomness it was that that ended me up here today. the overture made to do so, I take as a blessing, and
Yes.
I just think it's awesome. And yeah, our weird crisscrosses of story.
Isn't it weird? So yeah. So we both grew up in Washington State. I went to Sherwood Elementary. You went to Esperance.
Yeah.
Right. But then in high school, I guess it was our senior year. Was it our senior year? You were at Woodway High School with me. And apparently we were both cast in the same play. Is this correct?
Yeah, that is right. 12 Angry Men.
12 Angry Men.
Do you remember and Barbara Connor? That was that class. That was I was kind of, I think, when I was at Seahome in Bellingham, I was in a different crowd than the drama crowd. I'd always done creative stuff, but I sort of veered off to this like really socially, be a jock, play football, which was preposterous because I was about 120 pounds and didn't know anything about football. But anyway, I was going for a kind of a transformational thing. And I did that, and I didn't get into drama. I sort of left aside creative stuff. So it wasn't until I got to Woodway that I joined Drama Club. And
wow.
And I loved that play.
Yeah, me too.
Coincidentally, so my friend Billy Burke, who is a big actor now, his dad had been an actor when he was in high school, and he was juror number 4 in 12 Angry Men.
And was he?
So he was all psyched about this play happening, as I think many of our friends and family were. And then what happened?
Yeah. Okay, so for me, what happened was I got cast in a play. First time I'd ever been cast in a play, except for maybe Santa Claus and the Witch at Sherwood Elementary, where I played Santa Claus. But I got cast in 12 Angry Men. I was so excited because I had always wanted to be an actor since I was like 3 years old. But I had regional swimming finals, just 1 week of it. And so I told her, I said, I just want to finish out the swim year, and then I can start rehearsals. And I mean, it was a rehearsal process. So I thought, maybe I thought she'd let me do that. But apparently then she was just like, nope, sorry. And I was gone. I was so surprised though, because I was so willing to, work on the thing and all that stuff. But I guess she had some rules, some strict rules. So I was going to play the salesman character. I think there's a salesman in it. Yeah. And there was an article in the school paper about it.
Had something else to do.
Yeah.
And so all the work that we've done up to now, you won't get to do your performance.
Did they? So you rehearsed it, right? And then somebody else bailed out? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. We went up literally, I think it was supposed to be like, it was, I guess, going to be on the weekend or on Friday night or whatever. And it was like the day before or 2 days before, and I don't even know who it was.
2 days before? Oh my God, we're going to find out. 2 days before it got canceled?
Oh,
really?
Yeah. And so all the work that had been done up to then and whatever, and just, nope, sorry, you're, and that was that. And I was just like, what?
What happened to the show must go on? Come on.
Yeah,
now.
the guy had, I know, you should have someone over in the corner.
I would have gone in there.
Off the script.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was a bummer, but,
things happen.
Yeah.
So later on, I'm in college, and I see I was in the drama school, and there was a piece of paper that said that they were auditioning people for Chocolate War. And I was like, I wonder what the hell the Chocolate War is. And I have no idea why I didn't audition for that either. I missed these opportunities, I guess. I was too busy swimming. But I remember seeing the flyer and being like, what is the Chocolate War? And then, so I was very well aware of this movie. But at the time, you had to go to a movie theater to see movies. So I never saw the movie. And I guess it was filmed. Was some of it filmed at the University of Washington?
I don't know if it was, I don't, I don't know, and it could have been. I know that it was filmed mostly in Everett at a high school out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if the high school is closed or they'd made it maybe in an administrative building or something like that. Um, and it looked like, I would say it looked like Philadelphia, and had that old.
Was it supposed to be set in? Where was it supposed to be? Okay, so the
Yeah,
Chocolate War, for people
takes
that don't
place
know
in,
out there,
takes
is a
place in
movie.
Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I don't recall if it's actually Philadelphia, but I think it's like small town Pennsylvania.
It takes
And
place at a Catholic school, and it's boys in a
yeah,
Catholic school. And I
yeah.
find, what made them shoot it in Seattle anyway? Why did they choose that?
Well, I think that they were looking for areas that were easier to film at than doing a whole location in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and Seattle was sort of trying to lean itself toward the revenue that would come from the film world, and that I eventually went on to Vancouver because Vancouver made it a hell of a lot easier than Seattle wanted to make it. It's just too expensive. But it was the right kind of environment, and I think they just got it for cheap. I mean, if you wanted to do that I did a film. Well, the next film that I did was filmed in a school in Los Angeles, and you had to have a lot more money for those kinds of for getting those kinds of locations in Los Angeles. They
Well,
just,
that's why sometimes it's good to go out of town, especially if it's your hometown, because you can get a lot of deals from people that are not going to, give you a hard time or try and up the price because they know that, movies have a
right,
lot of money, or they think
exactly,
movies have a lot of
exactly.
money.
So
Keith
they
Gordon
took it up
directed
there,
that, right?
huh?
Keith Gordon directed that, the guy
Yeah, he
from.
directed and he wrote the screenplay, and out of Robert Cormier's novel by the same title, and it was a really there was no it was kind of a maverick move to do at the time. You didn't have the Sundance Film Festival, like all that stuff that became really, really crazy later and was making like people could make a movie on no budget with no studio and then get distribution and boom, you've got Quentin Tarantino, and that kind of stuff. We didn't have that yet.
I want to point out Sven de Kock. I don't know if you remember Sven. He was our exchange student at Woodway High School. And Sven says Dan Smith was going to be Henry Fonda in 12 Angry Men at Woodway. Sven was in the cast as well. Drama teacher gave up on us.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the scoop all the way from Belgium.
Oh, from Belgium?
Yeah.
Sven, I worked with I don't know if he's even still doing anything. His name is Jan Verheyen. And we did a film called The Little Death. And as far as I know, I have a placard in a big, huge movie theater place at 20 theaters. They're all like 1,000 seats, called Acropolis, or it was. And we had the premiere there in Belgium. It was one of the most fun things I've ever done.
I love Belgium. It's so much fun there.
But the Chocolate War. The funny thing was, so I auditioned, and Keith had a really thorough auditioning process. So I ended up going back like 5 times, probably.
Really?
And I was coming off the heels of a very successful play that called Tamer of Horses that I'd gotten for the group theater in Seattle. Lots of great, just terrific write-ups and all that kind of stuff. And so I got an agent, and then I was getting these auditions, and I go and I get this audition, and I'm auditioning, and I go through the whole thing, and Keith calls me, and he says, I got, not great news. The studio, of course, at that time, like they always do, they want to put as many name actors as they can in something for their box office. The idea is that will bring in, oh, I've seen that guy, I'll go see that film. And so, and I was not a name, and he said, I just hate I hate the game like this. This is just,
Yeah.
it's not my favorite thing, but it's a fact, and my hands are tied. So
Wow.
I thought you were really great, and I'd love to, to have our paths cross again. Da, 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 da. Really
Oh,
nice guy,
wow.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. This guy, by the way, he starred in Christine. He starred in the movie Back to School, and he's an
That's
incredible
cool.
director, directed Midnight Clear, and just some great movies, always with a lot of heart.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
and the music is always, there's great music in this movie. Apparently, like Peter Gabriel and all kinds of people almost donated
Yeah,
music.
I think he used some Enya stuff. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just really, it was quintessential '80s. Late. It was just really like it was just perfect.
Yeah.
And so,
So then what
uh,
happened?
and then he calls me a week later, and he said, "Oh, that actor got some other bigger movie." And
they
so,
they dissed you guys.
do you still want to do it? And I said, "Yeah, I do."
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
and so it was full,
I'm
switch
going to
around.
show a clip of your first scene in that movie. This is probably your first scene in a movie, right?
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, I'd done non-union stuff, but this
Yeah.
was my Taft-Hartley.
Debut.
This made me SAG eligible.
I feel like it's a little like when you see Mickey Rourke first time on screen. You've got like a quality that it's just, I do. I think so.
Well, I don't know about all that, but
Oh, come on, let's go. Let's go with that. Here it is. Here it is.
Still got the picture or what?
What picture?
You know what picture.
Oh, that picture. Yes, Emil, I still have it.
I suppose it's for sale.
No, not for sale. To tell you the truth, it's not the greatest picture of you anyway. You got this funny look on your face, but you're not smiling or anything.
Where do you keep the picture, Archie?
It's safe, Emil. Very safe.
That's good.
Tell you what, Emil. Someday you might have that picture all for yourself.
How?
You won't have to buy it.
What's the catch?
Nothing you can't handle when the time comes.
Will you let me know when the time comes, all right, Archie?
You'll be the first to know. Emil, if you're gonna jack off in the toilet, you should at least close the door.
Hey, kid. I'm all out of cigarettes. What I'd like, kid, is for you to go over to Baker's and you buy me a pack. What's the matter? You ain't got the money? And don't want to be late, huh? That's life, kid. Heads I win, tails you lose. So you steal the smokes, or you borrow the money, but you meet me after lunch with the pack. Luckies. Get out of here! So, Archie, think I could be a vigil one day? He's got the money. And don't you think? He's just got the money, but, he's just lying through his teeth.
I bet you kick old ladies down the stairs and trip cripples on the street, huh?
ouch.
Oh, wow, man. You are cold. You are cold. That was so great. I'm going to just get some applause going. Yeah, I do feel like you really like exploded onto the screen there. Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
So what was that like working on that thing? Did you know it was going to be like a big movie? Were you?
Well, I didn't really know. I mean, the thing was, it had Jenny Wright in a cameo, really, but she'd been the girl in Pink Floyd, The Wall, and it had Adam Baldwin, who'd been when I was a kid, the film My Bodyguard. He was
Yeah. Remember that movie?
he was that guy. Keith, of course, I knew of his career, and John Glover.
I love John Glover in this movie.
Bud Cort.
And Bud Cort, too.
Vermont. You know, I mean, like, it was just like, whoa. To me, these guys maybe were not the biggest stars, but as actors, you know, like if you had that kind of sort of that really sort of intense that those guys who were just a little off, who had a particular thing that they were about or that they could do that you know, there's no other Bud Cort. I mean, there's no other Bud Cort.
Bud Cort, of course, starred in Harold and Maude, so many of our one of our favorite movies, of course.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff was that really grabbed me, and you know, so it was like a real Hollywood film, and then the funny thing was it became perhaps so it goes on year later, maybe not a year, maybe 9 months, something like that. Goes on, and it is playing in some theaters, little theaters, and it was playing in a little theater. I mean, like a chain theater. I don't know what one, but art house kind of theaters on Broadway in Seattle, and at the time, by that time, I'd done some more theater, and then hold for siren.
Cops are here.
We're on Bainbridge Island. I'll tell you.
Bainbridge Island Cops. That must be a show.
Don't anyone be worried about sirens here, because here, sirens are not for crime. They're for fires, heart attacks,
lunch.
Anyway, so it's out in the theaters, and class of 1999 comes to town and is casting. And the casting director, Kathy Henderson, and I don't want to go too long on this story, but I think it's kind of funny. So she
one of our viewers hears the siren as well. You guys are neighbors.
So Mark Lester, who had played Oliver in the film, grew up to be a director, and we had Malcolm McDowell, Stacey Keach, those are Pam Gidley. I'm Pam. God,
it's hard.
Pam, the black actress.
Pam Grier.
Yes. I knew it started with a G. So, I mean, great cast. Goofy, you know, it was supposed to be kind of the sequel to the Michael J. Fox class of 1984, sci-fi, whatever. And so again, but in Seattle at that time, you know, I don't care what it is. I can be in a film, you know, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So I go and audition, and Kathy's just like, oh my God, and she's, you know, raving, and I'm like, she's compared me to somebody I just did not think was that great at the time, but I'm like, you know, it was positive, and and they said, well, do you have anything on film? And I said, yeah, I have a film playing in a theater up on Broadway now on Capitol Hill. If you want to go see it, it's called The Chocolate War. And to be able to go into an audition in Seattle and have a film playing in a theater, you know, in your audition process.
Yeah, it's pretty helpful. Just go down the street. You got to buy a ticket, though.
Yeah. And so I ended up getting that. We did the film, and she was like, you gotta come. You should get down to LA. You just gotta. You should just. You know, you got to come, just try it out if you can. I mean, and I was living in a house in the U District where I paid $75 a month for rent, and just like, you know, more or less scraping by, like whatever. And I'd had a little drug issue.
Oh no!
At the time, and I'd gotten busted by the cops. I was living. I had been living with my girlfriend.
Wait, little side note. I had gotten busted by the cops. Yeah.
And actually, we And by we, I mean I had been living previous to the U District House. I was living with my then fiance, Cheryl Lee, who went on to be Laura Palmer on Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
She and I had a quite tumultuous time when we bumped into cocaine. And you know, whatever. It was we were young. We were 21, I think, maybe. And so I had to go out to the drug place and do the whole behavioral health thing out by Northgate, and they didn't do testing until a little bit into the thing, and then they said, you know what, we think we're going to start doing some urine testing. And I said, you know, I'm so happy in my sobriety. I really don't think that we need to do that. I mean, why would you? Well, we're going to do it anyway.
Oh,
and
no.
I was like, oh shit.
Oh, no.
And so I called up Kathy and I said, hey, I'd really love to come down. Can I come down?
You just got out of there.
And I
No way.
You know, and I went to the probation officer and I said, I've got this opportunity, and what would I have to do? And I said, you'd have to have something equivalent to what you're doing here, and have them send a, you know, whatever report every whatever periodically, and da 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 da. And I said, Kathy, I've got a problem. I need a blah blah blah. She goes, cool. My ex-husband is a therapist, and. And boom, 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 bing, bang, zoom. It was like I went with a duffel bag, my guitar, my teacher, Mark Jenkins, and my mother dropped me off at the airport, and I went down and I
Was
got
Mark
to town.
Jenkins your acting teacher?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And he married my mother.
Wow, that's pretty handy.
So that's like I'd like to say that I had this really noble pursuit. I was going to go down and honor the art and craft of acting, and that I was on a mission, and I was really just trying to evade
running from the law.
Yeah.
Let's just say it for what it is.
And I hit town, and it was, and I had film, and I had stuff to show, and I had
so great.
Kathy was known all over town. She'd been casting for ages, and everyone loved her. And I got an agent. I got an agent at Camden Artists. The guy who ran that was a guy named Merritt Blake. But most notably for me at the time was that Die Hard, the building?
Yeah,
what
of
do they
course.
call it?
Over by
Nakatomi. Yeah. Nakatomi, what is that iconic building that we all know? Oh, that's that's where my agent's office was. We're driving up to go meet my new agent, to go. And I'm like, whoa, this is from Die Hard.
Yeah, so you looked up and saw them. You recognized the building just by looking at it?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at the time, that build, because the building is like a central character in the movie.
Wow. Yeah.
Nakatomi Plaza in LA. I think it was Takamine or something like that. But anyway, so that was very impressive. And then onward, I just immediately.
My wife says that Camden Artists was her agent as well.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
The same agents.
At the same time, in the same tower?
Probably. Because this was kind of her heyday as well, doing when she was like really like, starring in movies and stuff like you.
What was her? What is her name? What's her screen name?
Kamala Lopez.
Kamala
Lopez.
Oh. Now I recognize. Yes, now I recognize the name with when you put the K in there. Now I'm gonna have to go do some digging.
You'll find some stuff.
So that's really cool, and it was definitely like it was just one blessing after another. I mean, I went. I told you so I was not supposed to have the chocolate war, and then I ended up having it. And then I got to town and I immediately auditioned for this Disney Channel movie called Spooner with Robert Urich, and same thing, went along. It was just a rigorous audition process, and this is like the first audition that they sent me on. And I go, and it comes down to me and Josh Brolin.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the name power prevailed. And they said, you're great, but Josh Brolin, he's, got a name. And so he got it. And then a week later, they called me and said Josh Brolin was riding motorcycles out in the desert, and he got in a little wreck and broke his knee. So he can't do the wrestling part of the movie. So do you still want to do it?
You're so fortunate. I mean, he's not, but Josh Brolin had a sort of an interesting career as well, where he at one point moved to the East Coast and just studied with an acting teacher and then came back.
I didn't know that, but I'd never gotten to our paths ended up crossing just a few years back. After all that time, we were in the same rooms, sort of a group meeting kind of a thing, and I said, I went to him and said, hey, I just got to tell you, you're kind of responsible for getting my, setting my career on its course in LA. And he goes, how? And I said, do you remember Spooner? And he goes, you were the guy who got it. Yeah. I said, yeah, thanks for breaking your knee.
Oh my God. Wow.
But yeah, it was real fun. Really nice guy. And he's also one of the actors that I look at today as like sort of a kind of that sleeping seed, where he turned into, I think, far more an actor than anyone expected that he should ever have to. Like he had the Brolin name. He didn't really have to, whatever, but he's excellent. He's just an excellent actor.
We were up in San Luis Obispo, and he was talking at I think it was a film festival, and he was talking about how he had done that with his career, where his career, he was playing roles that he didn't think were what he wanted to do, his trajectory. And so he just went to the East Coast, studied with this acting teacher for like a year, just to get himself into a different realm, just to become better, essentially.
Yeah, and just really, I mean, if you look at stuff like, his role in Men in Black, or I mean, just tons. He's really terrific.
Seems like a really good guy. So Spooner, what happened with that?
It was just, it was terrific. I mean, the cat, first of all, what's one of, if you can think of in our sort of defining pop culture of our time, of course, The Breakfast Club.
Yeah, of course.
Paul Gleason.
Paul Gleason.
You mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Right.
2 weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
And Judd Nelson, whatever. So Paul Gleason, I look at who's going to be in this film with me. Barry Corbin, who'd been on, I think, Northwest, whatever, the film that, I can't remember. Jane Kasmerick. Paul Gleason, who was the principal guy in Breakfast Club, who, clashes heads with Judd Nelson, is going to be the principal guy in Spooner in the school that I get to clash heads with.
Oh, cool.
And it was a really cool, feel-good. And Katie Barbieri, who was just really hot at the time. She's also really, really hot. She's bilingual and bicultural, and so she has this whole crossover career in Spanish-speaking Hispanic audience. Keith Coogan, who was like just one of those kids who grew up working. The guy never stopped working. Like all of these guys were just pros, and Bob Urich was just he was a. He was, we had the same agent. And and he used to like give me. He was a prince, and he had lots of like old seasoned pro kind of pointers, and he, like do this and don't do that, and then and he used to, he'd always wanted a movie career.
Yeah.
And he said, and he would sit there sometimes and go, God, I believe it. You're going to have a movie career. And it wasn't discussed that I would. It was just that you could tell he would make himself vulnerable in these ways. He knew his position in the business. And he told me, he said, I had a period where I didn't work for 10 years.
10 years.
Couldn't get a job for 10 years. So he said, just know this thing it's temporal. It can come and go, And so there was that, and his wife was always... Did
you feel like he was a real mentor to you?
I feel like he was a guy who genuinely... I talk about him emotionally because he was a guy who genuinely, he just saw this, I was full of fire and everything seemed great. And I think that his attempts to caution were very loving and kind.
Yeah.
And his, to intervene in conversation when the cameras weren't rolling and sitting and having lunch together. And he invited me out to their house and I could have gone. Why wouldn't you go out and hang out? He said, you should come out. And I think he said, we got some horses, we got a ranch, and his wife was just a dear. She was just lovely, and they were both wonderful people. They approached me like real people, not like Hollywood people. And so to have him, I've gone on to die of cancer, and then she ultimately later, I think, died too young also, and I forget what it was an affliction that she had. But anyway, he really made an impact on me in that he was like the journeyman worker, and that he survived a period of 10 years of not being able to work and stuck it out and brought it back around. And that I saw that things weren't necessarily about, the explosion and ultimate popularity, for generations or whatever. Everyone wasn't going to be Marlon Brando or Al Pacino or all of those. Not everyone was going to do that. In fact, that's a fraction of a percent. The rest of it is like, I got a friend, I had a friend, Mike Bowen. Michael Bowen has worked his whole career. You might know who he is, you might not. He's been in tons of films, just tons. And if you see him, you go, oh yeah, that guy. But he's he's one of the 2% of actors who work their whole career just doing acting. Mm-hmm. And you might not recognize his name at all. And those kinds of actors came to be, I should have been a little more impressed. I should have applied some of those principles probably to my own career earlier than I started to, honestly.
It's important for people to keep their head on straight in all situations, not only when you're not working, but when you're hot.
Right, exactly. We tend to want to get, that's it, I've made it, I can relax now. And well.
Did you feel like you did that at some point in your career where you maybe should have put on the gas when you put some wrenches in your
honestly,
machinery?
Joel, if I am honest, I did that in my career to a stunningly tragic degree, I think. Not tragic about my career, tragic about my I didn't keep on a path of study, personal growth, but not so much as it would be too uncomfortable to grow. Yeah. And I got into the Hollywood party scene, and then I was in the music business also. So there's a real permissive culture that I just was going to whoop it up, and I still had a little bit of that live fast, die young, kind of thing. So that was a plague. All of my heroes, musician, poet, actor, or whatever, almost all of them died some sick and tragic death. The ones that I emulated and all of that, I really got into that mentality. And I think, not that they all weren't great artists in their own right, but I think my attachment to them had a lot more to do with personal fears and insecurities that I myself generated by the undermining behavior. So it's kind of a weird, it's like I started to do things that were contrary to my nature.
Yeah.
They were a part of an image, and an image that was livable to a point. And then I persisted. And intrinsically, I think that we know where we are running afoul of our spirit and the blessings of life and that kind of stuff. At least I think that I did, but subconsciously. And I didn't spot a lot of things. I seem to have some kind of like psychic sense of what job would actually put me into. I mean, they wanted me to, audition for TV shows. I'm like, TV shows? Well, all my favorite actors don't do TV shows. TV shows is movie death, But I didn't. And
at the time, that was the prevailing thought.
That was the thing that had turned the business had turned that corner.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it. But I think that there was something in me that purposely didn't get it because I didn't want to be that big. I wasn't really sure, again, if I'm to be completely exposed here.
Yeah.
I don't think that I trusted that I'd be able to meet the expectations of such a thing.
I love that you're talking about this, and I know the audience really appreciates this as well, because it's something we all go through to a certain degree, but it's really it's just really generous of you to talk about this now. So you felt yeah, go ahead.
The reason that I do, and this is not to parade any of this stuff around, but what I have found is that the people who shared their stories with me that came to be a benefit to me were generous. And also I had to go through, I got involved in 12-step recovery and all of that. And there was some time that initially when I first did, I wasn't that type. Garrett Bennett actually, I don't think he'd mind, telling me, saying that he helped me to go in that direction. But he was the only person I knew who was doing anything like that, quitting alcohol and drugs. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So not to say that he's, a part of what I got to be a part of, but anyway, he was a catalyst for me. And
it's great to have those people around, because a lot of times everybody else is in agreement, especially when you're in your 20s and early 30s. There's a lot of agreement on just, drink and drugs and just, that this is part of the party lifestyle and like, and the people that can deviate from that and get, double down on their discipline and double down on their art, a lot of times can have the long careers,
Yeah, I mean, and there were, it was in a time, of course, he and I go back to when I think I first met him when I was like 17, and he was he's a couple of years older than I, and he was part of the reason that I went to North Carolina School of the Arts, because he had gone there. But in terms of sharing and being as expository and volitional as I can tend to be, there were periods that people had to practice so much patience and tolerance with me, because I wasn't going to be an easy case. I was not an easy case. I was a hard case.
You were.
And when I looked back and thought, God, what people went through to try to salvage me and this life. Forget the career. Despite my best efforts to undermine even that process. It's like, it's like you're sinking. You're like a drowning person who who doesn't want I got it. Don't throw me the life ring.
Yeah, you don't want exactly. I won't take the life raft. Were you aware of this at the time, or what? Or did you think it was like a cool attitude
I knew
as an
that
artist?
some of it. I knew that some of that I romanced the tragic character consciously a bit too much, but I always had thought, I guess I had this pattern in life from when I was younger. If I was with kids and there was a thing where we all got busted, they all got busted, and they got in trouble, and I got off scot-free. I had no consequence. I didn't know real consequence. So I always just was so used to
you like testing the boundaries. Maybe you're testing the boundaries. Like where?
Yeah, I just took it for granted that it wouldn't happen to me. Yeah. And
it's interesting because that character in Chocolate War had such a vulnerability about it, and I think that was the thing that was so powerful about that performance. Even though he was a bully, even though he was, pushing other kids around and doing things that were not nice, he had this vulnerability about him that you kind of understood, and it gave this like three-dimensional character. Put this three-dimensional character on the screen.
When I was a kid, I was a tiny kid, and we moved around all the time. So I was also the new kid a whole bunch of times, and so you have to pick up different skills other than being able to fight or to And I had been bullied, and I was skinny and scrawny and called a fag. Just I don't know how many times I've been called a fag. I mean, it's like I can't even count, just because if you have any vulnerability or weakness or softness or whatever, and young boys are trying to figure out how they will present themselves to be men one day and whatever, all that stuff. So, and I had an incident that happened when I was a kid and I had to go, and I was very, very upset, and I went to my mom, and my mom, wise woman that she was, explained to me why people, kids or adults, will act that way, and that person is merely afraid of that others will see what it is that others can see readily in you and are not as comfortable. So he's afraid. And he's trying to find ways to cover it up so that people don't see it exposed. And it, so he's only doing what he's doing because he can't get you to do what he wants you to do. So, he's got to overcome.
That's so interesting. So, okay, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but basically, I would love to go through your entire career because it's so freaking fascinating to me. I just want to say one other thing, too, that I came across you years later. I mean, I don't know when it was, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. All of a sudden, like I was hanging out with Henry Jaglom and Tana Frederick, and all of a sudden, there you were doing a play with them. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? This guy keeps popping up. And I don't know him, but he keeps popping up. What was that all about?
Well, and it's funny because, and I hinted at this a little bit when we were talking the other day. It has a two-part feature in my life. When I was in Seattle, it was about, it was 1985. It was the Seattle International Film Festival in 1985.
Yeah.
And Jaglom premiered a film there called Always But Not Forever.
Yeah.
And
I saw that movie. It was the first Jaglom movie I ever saw at the Seven Gables Theater, I guess. Maybe it was right around that time. I don't know.
It's the first one I ever saw, and then I started to look at his fascinating career and also his He, because of the background of his, he came from a family that was already, he didn't need anyone's money. He didn't have to get anyone's money. He could do whatever he wanted to.
Yep.
And he did. And so anyway, and and just as a little side thing, my aunt was working at the festival, and she's a very attractive lady, and he was kind of a dashing, filmmaker guy.
Yeah.
And they began. She was one of the festival staff, but she was a dynamic and very, very attractive woman. And I'm not surprised that he would want to date her. And they started dating a little bit. In fact, I think she's in the next film that he did, the one with Orson Welles.
Oh, really? The one in the theater? I think they're in a theater.
Huh?
I think they're in a theater in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that one too.
So anyway, and then, time passes. I do my whole thing, and I'm down. The 30 years passes. Yeah. And he's written with his muse, Tana Frederick. He started to produce a lot of theater. Yeah. And so he had written Always But Not Forever into a stage play. And my ex-manager and lifelong friend, Eliza Roberts, Eric Roberts was going to, they wanted him to audition, or not audition, they wanted him to consider one of the roles in the film, but it wasn't going to be his thing. But she sent me in to audition for it, and I got the role and whatever. So we're doing that whole get to know you kind of lunch stuff before production really started. We're sitting at this restaurant in Santa Monica where he and Orson Welles ate lunch every day. There's a book about it.
There's a picture of them together.
And I was able to tell him that we'd come full circle from Seattle International Film Festival to 30 years later, and make a weird kind of connection like that. Yeah. But it was terrific to be back on stage to do that. And I got to do all the music. We used my music.
Yes, you're a musician as well. Yeah. Which is something we haven't even touched on, but that's incredible too. That's great. So that's super fun. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Ginell says, why Bainbridge? Why do you live on Bainbridge?
Well, so my partner and I, there's an attorney named Matt Pappas. He was probably a little while ago, was probably the most famous cannabis attorney in the world. Yeah. Because of a particular case that he caught some cops on video abusing patrons in a care collective and eating marijuana edibles. Yeah. And so around the world, and he and I grew up in Bellingham together, and we were doing we had developed over time. I had gotten out of my second divorce and went back to Orange County and started to do some stuff at the law office. And then over time, the spiritual aspect of cannabis.
Did you go to law school or something?
No, but I had an elder cousin who sort of stood in place of my dad, who had his bar ticket in California and Montana for 60 years. And sometimes I would clerk for him and run his office out of his house. So I picked up a lot of, over the years, of...
Somewhere in my studies of you, I saw something where you studied the book Black's Law Dictionary or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what he had me do. He said, you have to. You're going to have to. He said you could probably pass the bar if you just studied Black's Law. So... anyway,
here's a comment from Matt Wright that I just want to point out. He says, I very much remember being in study hall with you at Woodway. All the best people sat at the Freaks New Waivers table.
Yeah. Matt, show me your picture because I bet I'll recognize you.
Matt Wright was the lead singer of the band Gashuffer in Seattle. And I'll send you a picture. I'll see if I got a picture.
Are they still playing?
No, they're not, but they should be. No, they Matt's on to his next gig, which we don't know what that is yet, but I think it's going to be good.
So Matt and I, Matt Pappas and I, we've done that for some years, and we developed something that was a really solid, spiritually based cannabis congregation.
Thank you for getting back on topic.
Yeah, for people who hold cannabis as their sole sacrament.
Okay.
And since we have these laws in the country that are based around the idea that belief can't be questioned, but sincerity can be questioned, we had to really develop this to be something that was for sincere people, not just people trying to, get a price break on their weed, And we've taken this to court in California. In California, the Superior Court of California pronounced by a guy named Judge David Cohn, this is a bona fide religion. If the Catholics can transubstantiate wine into the blood of Christ, then certainly the blessings onto cannabis into sacrament should be equal. And
so it's a religion.
And that had never happened anywhere in the U.S. having to do with cannabis. It had happened for ayahuasca. It had happened for peyote, but we did the first cannabis one, and we've had some other stuff since then. Anyway, we finally decided, to get out of Southern California, get back home, move to Bellingham, and that was okay for a bit. My mom has had some medical stuff, and getting to Washington was very important to me to be here to take care of her as that progressed with my sister. And so my mom was living in Kingston, that's Kitsap County, and they all planned to still live in Kitsap County. And I had brought a lot of the stuff from the church-related stuff, had a lot of people that I was meeting, and I knew that there was going to be work in Seattle. I didn't want to live in Seattle. I experimented with that for a couple of months, and I was like, Seattle's just not what it used to be. So I needed a place that for me anyway, the most convenient thing was that there would be a place that was equidistant between where they are now, which is out in sort of Silver Lake Hills, and that I could hop on a boat and be in Seattle, sort of either or. And also, I have history here. This is where Annex Theater began, and that's where I began everything with Garrett Bennett.
This is the Annex Theater that was eventually in Seattle, right?
Yeah. It started out here I think they started it in about 1984, and then I met them through a friend, a girl that I was just roommating with in Seattle. She was from Bainbridge, and I met all her friend group, and they were all these actors whose parents had all been a part of Bainbridge Performing Arts, and so they annexed from Bainbridge Performing Arts to a place called the Storefront Theater. It was in an old thriftway, and it's on High School Road, and eventually transitioned into Seattle, and then and sustained and became. The Times a couple of months ago just ran an article about the unlikely 35-year life of this goofy little theater. That they first, when we moved to Seattle, we got I think it was the Fred Astaire Dance Studio. It was on 4th and Virginia, I believe. And it was above a 7-Eleven. Yeah. And the first year's rent was $1.
Yeah.
and then
$1?
The next year, I don't know. Yeah, first year's rent was $1 a month, and then the next year was a fantastic deal. That is a great deal. And so it gave a year to get up on the feet, and at that time, a lot of great actors came out of working with that group. Paul Giamatti came out of working with that group. Cheryl Lee was when she was with me, and we were both a part. There it is. Yeah.
There you are up on top there.
So that's me and her, and Garrett's over across from me, and Brian Finney and John Lawler. John Lawler is he runs the Performing Arts School, the premier Performing Arts School in Los Angeles today. He's fantastic. He's awesome. Just a mega artist, like depth. By that, it's like a lot of the people that I knew went on to be things that acting never could have contained for them. You know, there's bigger than.
Here's some people talking while you're talking because they're so interested in this. Sven is saying, how come you guys never met? He said he knew almost all the juniors. I think you were a senior, and I think he was in our class, Sven. Saw so many great shows.
I only went to school. So my mom got a job in Lake Stevens. That's what took us out of Bellingham, and my senior year had to be somewhere else. We lived in Linwood. I lived literally like probably 100 yards from Linwood High School, but I didn't want to go to Linwood High School because I just didn't want to. I'd been in Edmonds as a kid. My sister did some time at Woodway, and it just had a more whatever kind of ring to it. Yeah. And so I had to bus.
I think you and Sven must have met because you were in the play together and you were rehearsing. So you guys met. You just have, we had
to have met.
Yeah.
You know what else? I'll get to this. But anyway, I took 2 Metro buses across town. It took me forever, and I got tired of it. And also, honestly, I had been so social and a little bit, having a mom who was a PhD in education and educational reform. I was pretty picky about teachers in general and whether I believed they were if their teaching technique was worth attending their class. What an arrogant prick. But anyway, so by the time I got to Woodway, I would have to make up a year and a half's worth of credits. And I just was like, yeah, it ain't going to happen. So that's why I only stayed the half year. But I really liked, for example, and I was in some AP courses, and I really like Mr. Openshaw. Remember Mr. Openshaw?
You like Mr. Openshaw? Cool. Yeah.
I believe he was also a football coach.
Yes, he was. There's been his name has come up on this show a few times. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But you liked Openshaw.
He was a fantastic teacher.
He was a defensive coach on our football team too, and he had quite a temper.
So I had a kind of an affinity. He reminded me of a coach that I had at Seaholm, and also he was an awesome teacher. I mean, he was fun. He was more, how he would kind of psychologically profile the characters from history, like Anne Boleyn or whoever it was. And his courses. So I would get off my ass and get out to Woodway to be in his class.
Were you in his psychology class?
Yeah.
We might have been in the same class. I remember one time we had an assembly, and there was like a thing where they were steal the keg, and there ended up being almost like a riot. Because everybody was like trying to steal his keg from each other, every class. And they had to call off the thing, and we went back to his class. And then he did like a psychological profile about mob mentality that I thought was super interesting to like just do a class on something that just happened. So that was super, super fun.
I remember my first day sitting in whichever one, and for whatever reason, I'd already had covered a lot of the material that was being covered in his class. So I knew it all already. So he would do that, ask a question and, raise your hand if you know. And I was just like, boom, 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 boom. And some kid goes, the guy is on fire.
Oh, really? Matt Wright says Openshaw told us some highly inappropriate stories in class.
Oh, yeah. He didn't shy away from,
he was real. He was real, that guy.
Racist material. And I just liked him a lot. And he cautioned me against dropping out, but it's just not in the cards. And he was he cared. He's a teacher who cared.
That's cool. I wanted to say, what is the society that you have, the Church of Cannabis? What is it called?
It's called Sacramento Life Churches. And,
is there a website?
Yeah, SacramentoLifeChurches.org.
Oh, cool.
And it is now we had brought a church to Bellingham in 2018. It terrible location and mismanaged, and so it failed. But it was called Natural Healing Church of the Holy Redeemer, and so up here, the birth of natural healing churches came from Sacramento Life churches, but I've attempted to have the website represent them both, and a little bit of the history of how I'm back here doing this anyway. So yeah, but that has been a really rewarding being a part of something at a certain point in my life after my second divorce. I turned a corner really, and I really realized I needed to focus my life more on, rather than what's in it for me, to be a part of how I could help, and anything helpful is really what I focus on. When I get into I need this, I need that, get real self-centered and driven by that stuff, my life goes kind of awry a little bit. And when I just focus on helping others, my life takes care of me. I don't have to worry about it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to end the show, unfortunately. This is so much fun talking with you. I always knew it would be a good time if you and I got together, because we don't know each other, but for some reason we have a lot of, now we do. Now we know each other. Now we're friends.
Well, I was thinking about this this morning, because I've been considering, there are a number of reasons that I need to go down to Southern California, and I thought, well, now, Joel and I can go hang out and eat dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we'll be able to work as actors together too. That would be really fun.
That would be,
wouldn't that be great?
Even better.
Oh,
these days, all you need is, an operable camera
and a good story.
Little bit of money.
Yeah. A little bit of
That's
money.
it. Yeah.
All right.
So,
well, hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. This has been super fun. Talking with you.
Thank you, Joel. I really appreciate it. It's the most fun thing that I've done related to this. I don't get to delve into creative stuff as much as I'd like to, and this has just been a blast. I'm so grateful to you for having me, and for the people who came and watched and listened and participated and all that. As Joel knows, we don't live without you. Without you guys, there's not much for us to be hanging around for. So thanks a lot to all of those people as well. This is a huge day of blessings. Thanks a lot.
All right. So everybody's like saying thank you, and thanks so much, Brent. This has been a blast, and I'm gonna let you go. And we'll see you soon. Hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Right on.
All right, cool.
Anytime. I'll come back anytime.
All right, so here's our dance break. Dancing out with Adam Pierce. So this has been super fun. Gonna play a little Bad Leroy Brown here by Jim Croce.
Well, the south side of Chicago
Dance them if you got it.
is the baddest part in town. And if you go down there, you might just be aware of a man named Leroy Brown. Yeah, Leroy, more than trouble. You see, he's standing about 6'4".
Brent, I have to bring you back on for 1 second. I'm bringing you back on because we got to see your dog. Hold on.
Leroy Brown, the baddest man in the
Got to see the dog.
Better than old King Kong, meaner than a junkyard dog.
All right.
Well, Leroy, he's a gambler, and he like his fancy clothes.
There we go. There's Ellie.
And he like to wear velvet diamond rings of everybody's
Baby girl.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. This has been great. We'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend. This has been Lunch Therapy Interview Friday.
on now.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Joel.